Hello everybody, welcome back to Sword Wolf Forge. Got a big day ahead of us today. We're going to finish our knife by sharpening it today, and that will conclude this 101 series where we've step by step built this knife from planning to preparing the steel to heat treating to grinding to, yeah. So today's the day we're going to be sharpening. And sharpening, I have wasted more money trying to figure out how to sharpen than any other area of knife making. Um, there's all kinds of gadgets out there, machines, this or that, and in my opinion, it was just really a harsh impact on my wallet when I could have just been learning how to sharpen the old-fashioned way. And that's the way I'm going to show you how I sharpen. Now, to each his own, how anybody or everybody wants to do things different, but I'm going to show you how I sharpen in my shop. But you got to be careful with falling for some of these, I don't know, gadgets and stuff, because like you get these things that can clamp onto your blade, and two problems with that. One is when you clamp onto your blade, a lot of times you scratch the heck out of it. And you worked hard for the finish on there, and now you got scratches. The other thing about it is with some of those items that clamp on, if you don't put it in the exact same spot, you're going to get a different angle. So I got away from those a long time ago. I also don't like the electrical like pull through, because again, they will scratch up your blade. So we're going to go over to the workbench. I'm going to show you a couple different edges that you can put on the knife, the most common ones, and we'll start getting this wrapped up. If you've been following this series, you probably recognize these two terms from when we were talking about grinding our bevels on our knife. Well, they also can refer to the type of cutting edge we're going to be putting on our blade. Convex, it's more round, has a more robust support for the cutting edge. And the flat, these are the two most common. Basically just a nice flat edges coming to a point. Again, this does have more robustness to it, but performance-wise, I usually get better cutting out of flat. It really just depends on what the knife's going to be used for. Again, you know, we go back to the planning stage. Today, though, I'm going to be putting a flat cutting edge on our knife. Now, before we jump into that, here's something to keep in mind, because you can start with a coarse stone, but it takes a very long time to get that initial secondary bevel by just using a stone. I mean, you're going to spend some time on that. What I like to do is I like to start out, go over to the grinder, and start my initial bevels over there. But I wanted to show you something before we go over there first, because what I picked up, the biggest key to getting a sharp edge is consistency. And what I mean by that is the same angle every time. Now, there's some people that say, you know, 17%, a 17-degree angle, 22-degree angle. I really don't go off of that, because it's almost impossible. That you can even get like these little wedges that you can put between the stone and your blade to kind of see what angle it is. But it's really difficult to try to sharpen with those. What I do is I've kind of, I don't know, I'm sure I haven't pioneered this, but I use what's called a thumb method. And what that does is gives me consistency throughout the sharpening. And what I mean by that, like with a hunting knife, I like to put the spine on the top of my thumb, like this. And I will continue to do that throughout my stone progression and everything. That way I'm maintaining that angle the whole time, and I'm not changing it up. Because if you change up your angles, you're never going to get that thing sharp. It just won't happen. So you need to be consistent with the angle. Now, like if I'm doing a kitchen knife or something with a finer edge, then sometimes what I'll do is I'll put my thumb in the middle of the spine. And what that does is it builds muscle memory for you. Because at first, like anything else, like grinding or anything else, this is going to be foreign to you. And you're going to get frustrated. But I have found using this thumb method it really works pretty good for me. So that being said, because this is an outdoor knife, EDC, I want to put a more robust edge on this. I'm going to do on top of my thumb, and I want to look at this. I want to look at the gap here, because when we go over to the belt grinder, I want to get as close to this degree or angle as possible. So when we come back over to the bench and we start working with stones, it's fairly close. So all I really have to do is do a couple passes with each stone, give or take a little bit. But it saves me from having to grind on this diamond stone for hours. So I wanted to show you this first before we went over to the belt grinder. So I'm going to set everything up on the belt grinder and we'll get started. Before I start talking over a grinder, I'm just going to tell you a couple things before I get started here. One is I put my grinder in reverse, so the belt is going this direction. Because if you have the belt going this direction and you have your cutting edge right there, I've seen guys do it, you end up cutting your belt. So I always like the belt going in the opposite direction. This is a Trizac A300 belt. We're going to use two different belts today to get our initial bevel going on here. Also, I go at a real low speed. Another couple things to keep in mind, remember you have to have your safety glasses on and have a bucket of water near. We are going at low speed, but you still don't want to overheat your edge. Okay, so you got to be really mindful of that. And so all I'm going to be doing is, it's just like when we were in the grinding video, I'm just going to be following this, trying to maintain that contact with the belt horizontally, wherever it's contacting. And we're just doing it very lightly. We're not in a hurry here. We're already saving time by utilizing this versus on a stone. But just take your time. And I also like to make the same number of passes on each side. So if I do 10 passes on this side, I'll come back and do 10 passes on this side. That way our cutting edge doesn't get wonky on us. So let's go ahead and get started. I gotta adjust the tracking a little bit. Remember, I want that angle that I'm going to be using on the stones. All right, so I've done 10 passes on either side. And what I'm looking at now is my cutting edge. As you can see right here, I still got a little bit of gap before these bevels meet or intersect. So I want to hit that just a little bit more. I'm looking for any more. There's some right here. It's hard to see. That's what I'm looking for. I want these to start intersecting before I move on to the next belt. Some places it has intersected, but some places it hasn't. So I'm going to make another run on this real quick. And then once I don't see any more of that, then I can progress to the next belt. Okay, so just a little bit still right in here. But I think it's close enough that I can get this on the next belt progression. It's pretty close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the camera. I'm going to get a different belt on here real quick, and we'll keep on going. So off camera, what I did was I replaced the Trizac belt now with a 220 ceramic belt. We're still going to go in reverse, slow speed, and we're just going to repeat the process until we can really refine this edge and set ourselves up for the stones. And there's just a little bit, you're looking for a little bit of glinting. You might have to put your little spectacles on. Sometimes I have to. Yeah, I'm getting old. But we want to get rid of all that before we go to the stones, just making our life a lot easier when we're sharpening on the stones. Safety glasses, wherever I put them. Again, not a lot of pressure, just finesse it. Just focusing on trying to keep that same angle. Still got a little bit right here, so I'm going to run it a little bit more. Again, what I'm doing, this just saves a lot of time versus doing all this on the stones. Okay, we're almost there. I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off. And I've just still got a couple little areas that I want to touch before I move on to stone. So I'm just going to do that off camera. And once I get those out, we'll take it over to the bench and we'll start our next phase of sharpening. But you see, it doesn't take super long when you have this. Key things again, make sure the belt's in reverse. You take your time. You don't have to use a lot of pressure, and have a bucket of water next to your work area just in case you don't want to overheat that edge. I don't have a microscope out here, but I kind of wanted to try to get as a close-up view of what we're looking at as far as the edge goes as I can. There's still a little bit of glinting here and there, but I think we're ready to progress to the stones. And just like when we were grinding the knife with belt progression, we do the same thing with stones as well. We start with a rougher stone and keep on progressing to smoother and smoother stones until we get a nice fine edge. Now, you might have heard the term a burr. And what happens is when you start sharpening on a stone or belt or whatever, you actually develop what's called like a wire on the edge, on your cutting edge. And with each stone, it progressively gets that wire smaller and smaller. And what your goal is to knock that wire off. And that's why you proceed with finer and finer grit stones, is to get that burr or wire off. And I'll try to demonstrate it. It's hard to see sometimes, but if you ever seen a maker doing this, he's feeling for the burr. He's not really checking the sharpness, but what you'll do is, if you're sharpening on this side, and I'll demonstrate it when I got the stones up, but you'll feel a burr kicking up this way. So you would put your thumb on there and you can feel that burr. Now, once you feel that burr all the way down your cutting edge, you know you can progress to the next stone. So let's talk more work. Let me get everything set up and we'll get this thing knocked out. Okay, so this is my sharpening setup that I've kind of developed over the years. I'm starting out with a DMT extra coarse diamond stone. I'll put a link in the description of all these stones. I believe I get these from sharpeningsupplies.com, but I'll put a link in the description in case you're interested in purchasing some of these. I really like the diamond stones. They hold up quite well. Eventually they do wear out, just like anything else. But they've done really well for me. And what I like to do is I just got this fastened in a like machinist vise, and then I put that on a piece of rubber horse matting, and it kind of holds everything in place. And I also, what I do is I'll take a piece of wood and epoxy it to the back side of these stones to hold it up more, so my knuckles don't hit the vise. Because some of my stones I can't do that with, so now I have to turn this back and forth, which is kind of a pain. But with these, I can prop them up high enough to where my knuckles don't hit the vise. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, what I want to do is, remember I told you about the thumb method. So starting out with this extra coarse stone, I just want to drag lightly, and I could actually saw a burr pop up a little bit. Yep, there's a burr right there already. And it's going all the way. I'll try to zoom in on it. It's really hard to see, but you can feel it. It feels like a lip just curling over. So because I have a camera right in front of me, this might be a little bit difficult, but I'm going to show you what I'm doing. Just like when we're grinding, I'm putting a little bit of pressure with this hand to keep things nice and even, because I want that blade fully contacting that stone. And I'm steering with this hand. Okay? Nice. You're not using a lot of pressure either. You just want to pull it, or you wear these stones out prematurely. It doesn't have to be fast. And you might be able to see, I can see the burr, but you might be able to see just a little bit of glinting, but that it's already got a burr all the way. So again, I like to do, I lost count, but the same amount of strokes on each side. So I'll do 10. Well, let's say this is 4. And then I'll do 10 on this side. And if I look awkward, it's because I got a camera right in front of me. Feel for burr. Yep. I feel it the whole way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make just another run on this stone off camera, and I'll pick up with the next stone. For my own sanity, I decided to change the camera angle so I can actually sharpen a blade without a camera in my chest. I'm ready to move on. I've got a burr all the way from the tip to the back of the blade. I'm ready to progress now to a DMT coarse or a 325 mesh stone. And same thing, what we're doing again is we're refining that edge. We're flipping that burr back and forth until we knock that wire off. So again, just the same way, light pressure, thumb method. And this helps me remember. So I'm not guessing on that angle. Do 10 on this side, and then we'll do 10 on this side. If you notice also, I'm pulling, not pushing. I know some people that do both. They go back and forth. I don't really think it makes a difference, to be honest with you. This is just how I've gotten comfortable with doing it, by doing the pulling method. However you want to do it. Again, the main issue is that consistent angle. And there's been some times where I will do this just a little bit. That's really your choice. If you know something different, leave a comment below. But for me, I just like doing the pulling. So let's feel for a burr. Nice burr. And what I want to do again is I want to do this just a couple more times. I want to try to get that wire back and forth till it's ready to just pop off. Unlike some of when you see my ceramic stone, you'll sometimes see these wires pop off. So just work it back and forth a little bit. When you come back, we'll be ready for a fine stone. The next stone I'm using is a DMT fine stone, and same thing, same angle. Keep on working that burr back and forth, trying to knock it off. And actually, after a couple passes on that coarse stone, I think I knocked quite a bit of that burr off already. But we want to keep on refining our edge here. Yeah, I still feel some burr. It's a lot thinner, but it's still there, which is good. We want that. Check. Still got a good burr. And again, I'll turn the camera off, do a couple more passes on this till we're ready to proceed. So the last stone I'm going to use, it's ceramic, and it's made by Spyderco. It's a medium grit ceramic, and this is pretty smooth. I'm going to run the blade, same premise again. Now I might have to switch this back and forth because I'm unable to put a wood block underneath this, so I don't want to hit my knuckles. Again, you just have to use light pressure. And I can see a couple pieces of that burr coming off. That's 10 on each side. I'm going to go ahead and run this a couple more times again off camera, and then we'll be ready for our last step of sharpening. So our last step with the sharpening process is called stropping. Uh, Maybe you've been in a barber shop, or you've seen movies in a barber shop where the barber is taking his straight razor on a leather belt, going back and forth. And that's called stropping. And what that does is just polishes up your edge, gets rid of any little burrs or anything like that, and just cleans everything up real good. I've got two different strops that I use. This one I purchased at Sharpening Supplies. It's a piece of leather glued onto a pine wood, and you just use some green buffing compound on it, and that helps polish up your edge. Or sometimes what I'll do, I don't think it makes any difference, but I made this one myself, just glued a piece of leather onto a piece of pine, and then I apply some Mother's Mag and aluminum polish as my compound. Because this has little tiny abrasives in there. and it just helps polish up and finish off that edge. And a lot of times people will think that their knife is dull, but a lot of times you can bring back an edge pretty quick by just running it on a strop. Especially if you've gotten your heat treat down really good. Just a good stropping will really refresh that edge. And I do apply some pressure when I'm doing this. You see how the compound's kind of gray? That's metal from the blade. And it's just polishing up that edge. So do the other side. All right, let's test her out, see how she does. So before I let a blade leave my shop, I always like to test the edge. I like to use my trusty roll of, I don't know, packing paper here. And this does two things. One, it does verify it's sharp, but also when I'm slicing, if it catches or hangs on anything, I can then kind of pinpoint that there may be a spot on that edge that I missed a little bit. So let's give this a shot. And there it's just cutting. I'm not even pulling, I'm just pushing down. This thing is sharp. I think that'll do. We got a sharp knife. So there we have it. A completed knife.
We win! Group hug in the shower tonight! Or not?
If you've been following this whole series, we started out with just a scratch on a piece of paper, drawing everything out, went through the planning phase, cut out our steel, heat treated it, ground it to shape, put handles on it, and now this is what we've got. I encourage you to keep on going now. Maybe even try forging your blade out next time. That's mainly what I do, is forge out my blades. But I wanted to keep it simple. If you have been making a knife through this series, I'd love to see pictures. You can send them to me on my Facebook page, Sword Wolf Forge. I'm going to put up some pictures of this completed knife on my website. That can be found at www.swfknives.com. If you've gotten anything out of this video, please like, share, subscribe so I can start doing more stuff. I don't know what my next video is going to be on next. If you have any suggestions, please leave a comment below. I thought about doing a series on how I make my pattern welded steel or Damascus. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. But I thank you all for sharing your time with me. I hope that this video not only helped you understand how to make a knife, but what goes into it. There's a lot of steps, and this was a simple knife, but it's a nice knife. But now you can maybe appreciate more what goes into making a knife. So again, thank you for sharing your time with me. I've enjoyed doing this series with you. And stay sharp, everybody.